Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh. The Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Ripp. Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Ripp live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.
It's exciting that the business boutique was made for you.
I know that I can make a difference in people's lives, and I want to do that.
Hearing a lot of what other people are going through is really healing in a sense and motivating as well.
I have the world in my hand, and I can do whatever I want to.
Learning from some of the top leaders who can make these dreams a reality is just so exciting.
It ignited a passion in me to know she can do that, we can do that too.
I'm so blessed to have heard the podcast that led me to this moment.
Hey, welcome to the Business Boutique Podcast. I'm Christy Wright, and today we are talking about selling. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this topic because I'll be honest, in my own life and in my experience with business, selling is one of those really difficult things. The truth is, we've got to sell to be able to stay in business, but most of us, we've been burned by a pushy salesperson at one time or another, and we don't want to be anything like that. Later on in the show, I'll be interviewing Tiffany Peterson about how to sell with confidence. You'll also hear the story of a woman who was able to leave a full-time job that she didn't like in order to grow her dream business. But first, I want to share with you an experience I had in college that has stuck with me because I'll be honest, it's a perfect example of how I was burned by a salesperson and it shaped my idea of sales for the rest of my life. I remember it was a rainy Sunday in Knoxville. I went to the University of Tennessee and some girlfriends of mine and I were walking through the West Town Mall. We were just strolling through the shops. We didn't really have any big plans. But then a man with a clipboard came up to us. Now, of course, I'm a little bit more experienced in life, and I know what men in malls with clipboards are up to. But back then, I was 19, a little naive, and I had no idea. So we stopped to talk to him, and immediately he launched into his sales pitch. He told us how we could vacation for a full weekend in Gatlinburg at a beautiful resort for completely free. Of course, we were a little skeptical, but after we asked questions, he said the only thing we had to do is that 2 of us would have to attend a short video and a quick presentation. We thought, for 30 minutes of our time? No big deal. Of course we wanted to do it. So a few months later, a group of girls and I decided to take our weekend getaway completely for free. We drove up to Gatlinburg and we got into our cabin. Everyone was unpacking and we were really excited about what we were going to do. But first, one of my friends and I had to attend our presentation. Our appointment was at 2 o'clock, and so we showed up to the office, sat in our seats, and immediately we were shown a video. Now, this video had all of these families having the time of their life. They were at resorts all over the country. They were in Alaska and Hawaii. They were in the mountains and on beaches and in the city. They were beautiful resorts. The video went on and on about all of the features and all of the different things that we could enjoy, things that we could do for free at these resorts. And then after the video, we were led on a tour. I remember there was this large man who walked me through this maze of photos. Y'all, these photos were like floor-to-ceiling photos of all these families, and they were having so much fun. He told me how I could vacation basically for free for the rest of my life for the low payment of $100 a month for 10 years. He showed me how my future husband and I would enjoy the spas and my future unborn children would enjoy the water slides. And y'all, before I knew what happened, I was sitting at a desk filling out paperwork. The whole thing was a complete blur, but I feel like maybe somehow something went wrong because I walked out of that timeshare office as a 19-year-old with no degree and no money, but with a timeshare payment for the next 10 years of my life. Well, a few days later, whenever I came to my senses and realized what I'd done, I hated myself and I hated the salesman who sold me. Of course, that commitment was a huge headache in my life. It took months and months and hundreds of dollars to get out of. It's something to this day I still regret. And unfortunately, that's what many of us think of when we think of sales. We think of people that are pushy and aggressive. We immediately assume we're going to be taken advantage of, and we always assume they have an agenda. But the truth is, guys, we have to sell if we're going to stay in business. We have to sell our products and our services. We have to sell our businesses and sell ourselves to make people believe in us and want to buy from us. If we want to be successful in business, we have to master the skill of sales. But here's the good news. Sales doesn't have to be pushy. It doesn't have to be aggressive, and you don't have to take advantage of people. Believe it or not, sales actually can be fun. So I want to go through 3 different definitions of sales. Instead of assuming that it's pushy and aggressive and we're always taking advantage of someone like many of us believe because we've had bad experiences in the past, I want to talk about 3 different ways to look at sales. Let's talk about what those are and how you can use them to sell with confidence in your business. The first way I want you to look at sales is I want you to think of sales as influence, because that's really all that it is. It doesn't mean you're taking or stealing money from someone else, and it doesn't mean you're working someone over. It just means you're simply influencing them. Now, most of you probably have other areas of your life in which you've influenced someone. Think about it this way. If you're married, that's a big sale. You influence someone to believe that you are worth spending the rest of their life with. What about your kids? If you got them to eat dinner last night and eat their veggies, that's a big sale. You influenced your children to eat their vegetables. If you have a friend, you influence someone to let you into their inner circle. See, all day, every day, we're comfortable influencing others. And sales is no different. It's just simply the business of influencing. The second way I want you to look at sales is I want you to think of sales as sharing. You know, a few years ago when I was doing research on women with businesses, I asked many of them how they felt about sales. And all of them got kind of silent and squirmy and awkward. They said the words that I said at the beginning. Oh, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be aggressive. I just feel embarrassed. I don't want to annoy people or get on their nerves. Well, a few questions later in the interview, when I asked them why they love to do this thing, y'all, their entire attitude changed. They immediately poured over sharing their heart and their story of why they love this business, why it matters to them, and why it can help people. I remember one woman, and she told me about how she loved seeing little girls in the lobby of church on Sunday wearing dresses she made. They'd twirl around and talk about how beautiful they felt, and she realized how much her business mattered of making handmade dresses. I remember another woman talking to me about her photography business and how proud she was that she could provide photos that would be lasting memories of major milestones in people's lives, like weddings and babies. As I talked to these women about their story and their heart and why they love this business, they had no problem going on and on about why it mattered. And in that moment, listening to their story made me want to buy from them right then and there. Y'all, that's what good sales is. It doesn't have to be pushy or aggressive, and you don't have to have an agenda. Just share your heart, share your story, share why this matters to you. And in the process, people will fall in love with the thing like you do, and the sale will naturally happen. So the first thing I want you to think about is that sales is really just influence. The second thing I want you to consider is that sales doesn't have to be pushy. It can really just be sharing your heart. And the last way that I want you to think about sales is that sales is serving. Think of it this way. When you go to a restaurant, you sit down at a table and you have a server. They come up and they greet you. They give you menus. They take your drink order. They give you silverware. They go away and they place the order. They come back. They keep your water refilled. They bring your food. They check on you. They get you extra ketchup or salt and pepper if you need it. They take care of you for the duration of time that you were at that restaurant. Essentially, they serve you. That's why they're called a server. And then at the end of the meal, you pay your check. And your check is not just the price of the food. You also leave a tip for your server that served you. Because they took care of you, you reward them with payment because you appreciate how they took care of you. Sales is no different. You are taking care of people and serving them. You're meeting their needs and solving their problems, and you're helping them. Believe it or not, there are people out there that need what you have to offer. They want to buy your products and services, and they're looking for help. All they need is for you to step into that opportunity and be willing to help them. That's what great sales does. It makes me think of such a great example in my own life from about a year ago. So about a year ago, my son was coming up on a year of age, and he was starting to pull up and cruise around. I'd never really taken shoes seriously because, of course, you just put little socks on them when they're infants and when they're tiny babies. But when they start moving, when they start really getting mobile, you've got to have shoes for them if they're going to be out in public. Well, I had tried for months to find shoes for my son. I tried for several months to find shoes for him, and I'd tried all of the common stores like Babies R Us and Target, but for some reason, I could not get his feet in any pair of shoes. Any shoes that I could get on his feet seemed to slip right off. He'd step right out of them. Well, one day it was a beautiful afternoon and a bunch of my girlfriends were going to the park with their babies. And of course, we wanted to go. So I picked the shoes that seemed to fit him the best that we had, even though they slipped off pretty often. Well, we go to the park and it was one of those playgrounds that has the mulch base where the ground is made of mulch. As soon as we get there, of course, all the kids start playing, but my son, as he goes to play, steps right out of his shoes. Well, of course, the mulch is getting in his little socks, and then he's crying because the sticks are hurting his feet. And y'all, I'll tell you, after months of searching for shoes, I'd had it. Now, a few weeks before, I had a friend of mine recommend that I go to Wright, a specialty kids shoe store in the mall. She did tell me that the shoes are expensive, so I immediately dismissed it because I thought, how special can they be? They're probably just overpriced kids' shoes, and I don't want to spend that much money when he won't be in them that long. But this particular day at the park, I had it. I was like, that's it. I'm going to Wright. So I packed up my son and we drove immediately to the mall and walked into Wright. And as soon as I walked in, I think the sales representative could tell that I was one of those frazzled, frustrated moms. She walked up to me and asked if she could help, and I looked her directly in the eye and said, yes, I need help. I explained to her my situation, and she immediately sat down, calmed me down, and measured my son's foot. She said, oh, I see. Your son is a size 5.5 shoe, and he's an extra wide. Y'all, extra wide. No wonder those other shoes didn't fit. She said, actually, we only make an extra wide shoe in one style, and we have it in 2 colors, so I'll get both. She went back to the room and got his size and came back. And y'all, I'll tell you, that shoe slipped on my son's fat foot like Cinderella's missing slipper. It was amazing. I said, I'll take them in every color that you have. So 5 minutes and $85 later, I have never been so happy to spend money in my life. Not only was my problem solved, but that salesperson took care of me. She solved my problems, met my needs, and calmed me down in a moment when I was really frustrated. She served me. She didn't have to push me. She wasn't aggressive, and she certainly didn't take advantage of me. And that's what really great sales does. You don't have to work people over. You don't have to feel like that you're taking advantage of them. Instead, just take care of them. Just serve them. I promise you they will be grateful. Then they're happy to pay your price, thrilled even to pay $85 for a pair of tiny tennis shoes, for example. That's what great sales can do. So even if you've been burned by a pushy salesperson in the past, I just want to challenge you to think about sales differently. Think about sales as influence. And I also want you to think about sales as sharing. You don't have to push people to buy your product. Just share your heart and share your story, and the sale will naturally happen. And I want you to think about sales as serving. When you take care of people, they appreciate you, and then they're happy and even thrilled to pay the price that you charge. So if you can remember those 3 things, sales is not pushy or aggressive. Instead, sales is influence, sharing, and serving. It will help you sell with so much more confidence. Then you can sell your product, your service, your business, and yourself in a way that you're actually proud of. And I'm really excited because there's no one that knows sales better than my friend Tiffany Peterson, who is a sales expert, and she's the founder of the Lighthouse Principles. She's become a good friend of mine, and I'll be honest with you guys, I have learned so much about sales from her. I quote her all the time, and I'm really excited because she's actually here with us today to share with you some more tips on how you can sell with confidence. Tiffany, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Always a treat, sis.
So Tiffany, you were one of our top-rated speakers at our November event, and I love what you offer in terms of talking about sales because this is something that honestly is just a huge struggle for women. And the women that I'm working with, many of them don't consider themselves business-minded. They don't think they're entrepreneurs, and so they just have this idea or skill or hobby, and they turn it into a business, and they have such unbelievable value, but they don't believe in the value, and they have trouble talking about their product or service. And so, tell me a little bit about just the high level for you. What are you seeing when you're working with women in business that's holding them back from being able to sell their product in a way that's effective?
Well, I think it always begins with the mindset, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, everything, our health, our wealth, our sales, our business, our marriage, everything begins first in the mind. Mm-hmm. And so it's more about mindset, thinking what's the story you're telling about what it means to be in business or be in sales. We all have a story, and most people's story when it comes to sales is archaic thinking. It's old association to, oh, I'm a used car salesperson, I'm pushy, I'm aggressive, I might be dishonest, manipulative. And if you asked any of these women that you're working with, hey, how many of you want to be known for being pushy, aggressive, right, manipulative, dishonest? They're all going to say absolutely not.
Right.
So the story they have is that to be great in sales means I've got to be either a certain personality, right? Like I have to be super outgoing or super charismatic, and I can't just be myself. And or most often the subconscious or even belief work there is the belief that's negative, that I'm in sales means I'm doing a disservice or I'm taking advantage of people or I'm going to scare people away. And for most often, we know that for humans, their biggest fears tend to be in what will other people think of me? You know, all that self-judgment. So, I mean, I know that's me trying to tuck in like 8 things at once, but that really is when you ask high level, where are people getting stuck when it comes to women in business and it comes to sales, is they have a story first and foremost. That's running the show. Your mindset is like your operating system on your computer. It is running the show. And so when your mindset has an old story, an old framework of what it means to be in sales, then yeah, you're going to hold back or hide from that because you have an association or identity that's really negative.
Right. Well, and I know a lot of us too, like regardless of the type of business we're in, we probably all have at one time or another been burned by a pushy salesperson, a person that wasn't tactful, that wasn't effective. They really just were super aggressive. They interrupted us. They stopped us when we were walking through the mall, cold called us on something that we're not interested in. We just feel kind of annoyed by those salespeople that didn't do it well. And so unfortunately, those few bad experiences have shaped our entire idea about sales. But really great salespeople are not like that at all. And you talk about this, you talk about serving. So I'd love for you to kind of give us your definition of sales and what it's really about, because it's not, you're right, it's not about those negative associations. It's actually about something really great. So I'd love for you to teach us what some of those things are that it actually is.
Yeah, so I think at the core level, sales is simply just an exchange of value, right? It's that if you're going to exchange value of your time, like your book, the event that we're at together, you know, a pie, right? When you use the pie example or cake or whatever it is, there's an exchange of value. But no matter what anyone sells and no matter what you sell, I sell, we're all in the people business.
Right.
And to me, that really like takes it away from the fear is you just have to show up and take care of people. And the exchange of value for taking care of people, whether you have a product or a service or you're a nonprofit or you're a cause or a church, is that you're creating either a space, a platform, a service, or a product that's adding value to other people's lives. And so at that level, if we can start to shift the mindset to how can I add more value? As Tony Robbins says, dollars follow value. So if you're saying I want more sales or want more dollars, how do I add more value to the marketplace, more value to my existing clientele? How do I create and package or support that value being shared with more people? And so as we start to shift that mindset to say, I'm here to be of service. And for me, you know, it's really anchored back to some of the very same things I know we've shared and talked about before. But there's this quote I share in my keynote from Oprah Winfrey where she talks about when she was getting started. A lot of people don't know her story. She was a journalist in Baltimore. She did not have this big vision or a vision board of saying, I'm going to have my own show and so forth and my own magazine, now her own network. But she said, I got up every day and prayed the same prayer. And that prayer was, use me, God, use me. And one of the fastest ways I know how to help anyone overcome fear, and when my own fear gets triggered, sometimes before I get out on stage or get on a call or get on an airplane or different things that can come up for me too, seriously, I go to my own space in prayer of like, all right, use me, God, use me. And that's one of the things I so gel with you about before we kicked off this event.
Right.
And we're praying over the event,
right,
saying, use us, God, use us as your instruments. And so if you can come to that place where sales is really, you're just seeing it as an exchange of value. So therefore, what value are you adding? What value do you want to add, or how do you want to add more value potentially? But when we can start to move it to that mindset of we really are in the service business. Whether you own a McDonald's franchise, you own a jewelry boutique, you have an Etsy shop, you're in a network marketing company, your business results at some level are a direct reflection to your relationship exposure or a relationship influence of how you're taking care of people.
Well, I love your definition of sales, and I have quoted you so many times. My friend Tiffany Peterson says,
I've quoted you too,
girl.
girl.
Sales is an exchange of value, because what that does is it really does take all the emotions out of it. It's kind of like, this is the fact. Sales is an exchange of value. And so it takes out all this squirmy feelings we have about feeling weird and just says, look, this is the reality. When you walk into Starbucks and you get a latte and you hand them a $5 bill, you get a coffee and they get the $5 bill, and you did that transaction because you believed the coffee was worth more to you than the $5 bill. And so you handed over the $5 bill. And what's interesting is a lot of the women that I work with, they are willing to pay for things in their life and they don't even feel bad about it. They're willing to pay for things. They believe it's valuable, but then you translate that to their business or their product or service and they don't believe that's valuable. So I'll give you an example. You're a redhead, I'm a blonde. And the thing with blondes are when we get highlights, like this is a big deal. Like you got to have somebody that's good at doing highlights for blondes. Because if they screw it up, like it's going to look disastrous. You're going to look like you have orange hair or you've got bronze hair or gray hair. It can go wrong in many ways. So I have this girl and she's expensive and she does my hair every 6 to 8 weeks. And I pay her rate because I believe she's worth it. I believe that she is that valuable. She's that good at what she does. I love how my hair looks. I'm confident. It's something that's important to me. I'll go cheap on other things, but I want to have hair that I'm proud of. And it's amazing to me because we'll do things like that where we'll pay a lot of money for her hair. We'll pay a lot of money for something else. But then if she's worth it, why am I not? Or if she's worth it, why are you not? Why is that woman running her business not worth it? That we're willing to write a check for the best of something for our kids, piano lessons for our kids, but we're not worth it. And I think it really comes down to this real struggle with belief in our own value. So do you see that in women you work with where we struggle to believe in our own value and what we offer?
Yeah. And it's funny. It's even interesting when I hear you say that, like I feel my own heart just kind of gets more tender because this is the real work, is the belief of who are you and whose you are, right? From a divine conversation thought process, but that you are worthy and deserving. Now, the challenge with humans is they're often waiting for their feelings to match their truth.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
The truth is you are worthy and deserving.
Right.
The truth is that you have value in your products, services, or your time. Your feelings, though, your feelings don't always tell you the truth. I like to say feelings are not facts, they're feedback, right?
Like
my feelings teach me and like my own stuff when it comes up, because it does.
Sure.
But indeed, like the truth of the matter, we are worthy and deserving.
Right.
Taking time to care for your body, and whether it's your hair or it's time, to work out, or time for gym, or things that bring you joy.
Right.
Like we have a beautiful earth that I think we're meant to enjoy.
Right.
And somewhere along the lines we believed or made a choice, gosh, is that being selfish or different things? But sometimes, like you're saying, we might be okay to pay for other things, but can we receive?
Right. And you talk about that a lot. You talk about the receiving side of sales. And I don't think anyone thinks about that.
No.
So talk to us about that. What do you mean by this whole idea that it really comes down to receiving more than it is even giving?
Yeah. So do we have 3 hours together?
Yes, yeah.
Because I want that. Yeah. If we can, seriously. Because the depth and richness of this conversation is so at some level, everything's just a choice. Okay? What do you choose? A couple months ago, I heard one of my mentors who I've followed for 10 years. I've called her office, tried to meet her, couldn't happen. I was booked for a speaking gig in Berkeley, California. Same night, she's doing a book launch 10 minutes from my hotel. Got to meet her. And one thing she said that night, her name's Dr. Rachel Remen, is she said, a lot of you keep waiting around to feel worthy. And you think the conversation is about if I'm worthy and feel worthy and worthy, worthy, worthy. She said the real reality for all of us is it's just all a choice. Do you choose to participate? And do you choose to receive? Do you choose what kind of life and experiences and so forth? Is the power of our own choice influences this? Well, when it comes to belief of the worthiness conversation is at some level is making a decision. I choose, right? It's saying I am worthy. I am deserving. I allow myself to receive is the mantra. So when you think of giving and receiving, think of a yin-yang type image. There's two sides to it type of thing. So you have this giving, which we all are really well-versed in. We want to be servants. We want to give. I'm 100% on board. But where we sometimes struggle or where we're kinked energetically is in receiving. Like even think about, Christy, how many of your clients struggle to receive a compliment?
Oh, yes. I wrote a whole blog on this because it's such an issue.
Right?
We downplay it, dismiss it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So do you think at all if I have a hard time receiving a compliment about my shoes or my hair or my outfit or my talk, will I have a hard time receiving a sale?
Right. Yes.
Right? So it's practicing, can I allow myself? And the reason why receiving is harder is it's vulnerable.
It is. I'm so glad you said that because I was hoping this would go there because you're exactly right.
That's the whole conversation. So sometimes it's kind of like, would you rather be the person giving the gift and watching someone else open it? But when you're the person, if you're in a room full of people opening gifts in front of people, you ever felt a little vulnerable doing that?
Oh my gosh, no,
it's like
absolutely.
you're still on the hot seat.
I love being the giver. Like I am comfortable being the giver because the giver is in control.
Yes.
Right? It comes down to we're in the power position.
Yes.
We're the one in control. And so it's very easy for me to host a shower for my friend. It is not easy to be the one that a shower is hosted for. It's vulnerable to show up and receive everyone giving you gifts, attention, throwing this in your honor. It's very, very vulnerable.
Yeah. So see what I'm saying? Like you already plug into that. And it's like, well, why is that? And a lot of that is like, again, are people watching me? Am I doing it right? Again, a lot of times we're back to the fear of what will other people think of me, right? If I ask for the sale, how are they going to perceive me? If I share this thing or business idea, this company I'm real passionate about, how am I going to be perceived? Is some of that awareness, but it is receiving is a little more vulnerable. And so it's practicing that. And again, one of those true affirmations that I've utilized or shared with others too is I allow myself to receive and just become more conscious of it. And this might sound a little interesting, but I think I'm in a space I could share this. I became aware from my own spiritual growth a few years ago that learning how to receive was just as important as my capacity to give. And so because again, can I receive God? How many of us are DIYers when it comes to our faith?
Right.
DIYers, right? When the do-it-yourself, by the way, DIY, is that it's like, I'm going to earn my way and struggle in the strife sometimes. And I'm all about work ethic, but it's also about can I receive and allow myself to do so. I just like that one piece, though, truly, is your feelings are not always fact. And it's learning, okay, what do I choose? Even if my emotions aren't in alignment.
I think that's such a good word, too. My moment that I had this aha moment for myself, and I may have shared the story with you already, was when I went on my girls' beach trip. And it was a bachelorette party for me before I got married. So we all went down to Florida. And I remember one day I went down to get a bagel with my friend Sarah. And Sarah has been my friend since third grade. And we're checking out in line to get a bagel on my bachelorette trip, which, of course, if it's your trip, everyone pays for everything for you. You know, they split the hotel. They cover everything they're hosting. This is their treat to me before I get married. And we go down to check out for the bagel. And I try to pay for my bagel. And she goes, no, I want to get this for you. And I was like, oh, no, got it. And she was like, no, let me pay for the bagel. And I argued with her. Like, Tiffany, I argued with her. Not like in a mean way, but I was like, no, I got it. Like, I would not
and it's
receive.
Like you're arguing over $3
I
or
know.
whatever.
And it was exactly what you're saying. I couldn't receive. And she finally got in my face. This is only what a friend of, a bazillion years could do. And she goes, you have a problem. You have a problem receiving. This is your bachelorette party, and I want to give this to you, so please just receive it. And it was like I was speechless because I realized something about myself in that moment that had nothing to do with a bagel or $3. It had to do with she was exactly right. I was incapable of being vulnerable. I was incapable of receiving. I was fine hosting all day, buying bagels for other people all day. But when I was not in the power position, it revealed something very interesting about myself that I've since then tried to work on that and receive bagels and compliments and so on. But I think it's so interesting because when we look at sales, it really goes to that root of the issue. It's never about the sale or the cold call. It's never even really about the money. It's really about our beliefs about sales and our beliefs about receiving payment for something that we have that is valuable, that we have to offer. Now, I would love to take this in a little bit of a tactical direction because I've heard your keynote presentation and I know you talk about your network. And I would love for you to give us some practical tips once we kind of reframe our belief about sales and our value that we have to offer and that we are worthy, and that's a choice. And I love what you said about that. You talk about the power of your network. So tell us a little bit about that and how you use that in training people.
We're always in the people business. We're in the relationship business, and you might call it relational selling is the languaging, but it's just the aspect of your network equals your net worth. I learned that from a teacher years ago, and I'm not sure who created it, but it's the concept of relationship capital or relationship. If you have a thriving business, you have thriving relationships, right? So they're directly connected. That's who you're selling to. And if you're doing a good job and people are happy, then they tell their friends about it, or they share your post on Facebook, and they do a lot of your advertising for you when you're doing things well on the planet, right? Is the word of mouth and the sharing and the experience and so forth. And so when you think about the value of where's my network at? And the great thing is that when I say your network equals your net worth, is it's more so of how are you going to choose to show up and add value to that network? And so that's the mindset. So today, whether you feel like you have a bustling, thriving network or you feel pretty dismal, it's not about the people, it's about the quality of what you're bringing to those relationships. And you're often just a relationship away, a connection away from either an introduction or an opportunity or a client or so forth. You just never know who's around, Christy. And I've learned that so many times. And so how we treat people, how you make other people feel in your presence is your business card.
I love that.
And whether they're following your blog or your podcast like we're here today, or they know you personally, whether it's online, in person, however, is how you make other people feel is how you're remembered. And so if you can do simple things, I mean, let's talk about a few ways. How do we up our relationship game, okay? And relationships are in your home, in your business, they're everywhere. Is a couple things. One that we're seeing more today, this is going to sound so simple, but it's really profound, is to be present with who you're with when you're with them.
Yes. Amen. Preach it. Yes.
Right? I mean, and it's simple, and if I'm guilty of it, yes. But consciously, I've made a decision. So if I'm out at lunch or dinner, my cell phone stays in my purse, doesn't even get to live on the top of the table, because either the noise or the sound or whatever will be a distraction.
Right.
And I want the person I'm with to feel like I'm with you.
Right.
They want to feel seen and heard.
And what a rare thing these days,
It's
Tiffany.
rare.
This is rare.
So see, this doesn't cost a dime.
Right.
Because some of the other strategies, yeah, you can invest some dollars and so forth. Give people your presence and listen. The other part of that is ask more questions. People, it's like, are you interested in them? See, sometimes where we think sales is like, I got to put on a show and impress you.
Right. That's a good point.
Instead, it's more like, I'm going to understand you. If you want to be influential, which is a key word for sales, I like to think of sales of influence and leadership and value exchange, right? Is if I want to influence you, I need to understand you. And one of the best ways to do that is simply to ask you more about who you are and what your needs are and where you're stuck. But this is just as true at home and marriages, is like, honey, even if you think you know what your spouse will say after 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, whatever, is how are you and where are you at in life? And one of my favorite quote unquote sales questions is, how can I best support you? To ask your spouse that question, your best girlfriend, to go and ask your existing clients or someone you just met at a networking event that says, how can I best support you? Or what's up for you? Or tell me about you. Is the more that we're interested in other people, the more they feel seen. And feeling seen is a really important human need.
Right.
So when you're great at sales, you're just great at meeting human needs. I'm good at meeting human needs. And what are human needs? I need to feel important. I need to feel heard. I need to feel seen and valued. And they're simple things. I'm not saying they're easy, but they are simple things that when applied really change your life and change your business.
When you said something just a second ago that I want to go back to because I think it's very powerful as a point, sales is influence. And we think sales is just selling product, but you can be selling ideas. You can be selling a lot of different things. And so, for example, I'm in sales. When I stand on a stage and tell you ways that you should run your business or can run your business, why you should price a certain way, why you should charge something, why you should have a profit, I'm selling you on the idea of building your business this way.
Yeah.
And so it really is influence. And the goal is exactly what you're saying, to help people get to where they want to be, to meet their needs, to solve their problems, to improve their life in some way. It's never for us, right? Like when we stand on stage or on a podcast or in a one-on-one conversation, we don't talk for the sake of ourselves. We talk for that other person. Like, what can we do to help them? Exactly like you're saying, how can I best support you? But I love the idea of influence, because if you get your kids to eat their broccoli, like, that's sales. Like, you sold them on something good. Like, that's a great thing. And so it takes away some of the intimidation factor, I think, when you realize, you know what, we're just in leading. We are just in leadership. We're just in the business of influence.
That's so true. And you think about whether you're growing a church or you're wanting to get elected or raise money for your nonprofit, it's all just influencing other people to be bought into what the thing is you're about and how it serves and supports them.
Right.
And in that way, that exchange of that value. I love the conversation because it changes it up from having to feel afraid or feeling like I've got to be a certain personality.
Right.
No, there's just certain principles that when applied, they work. So when we're talking about nourishing your network, it's, again, making other people feel important, remembering birthdays, handwritten notes. Like, I travel, I have a stack in my purse right now on this trip with a stack of blank cards. How rare we see those things show up.
Right.
And whether it's a thank you note or it's flowers or it's a gift. And so whether it's listening more, asking questions, it doesn't have to cost money, but definitely a portion of my profit is absolutely dedicated to go back into my clientele.
What you always say, too, is people buy from those they know, like, and trust. And so what you're talking about here is creating relationships where you are known, you are liked, you are trusted, and then the sale's natural, right? It's not a forced thing. It's like it's the natural byproduct of these quality relationships that you've taken the time to be present in, to write notes, and to invest in. And then it doesn't feel like a push at all.
Exactly. And I really have a specific philosophy in business too, and sales is take care of your existing clients.
Yes.
I think sometimes in sales, we're often so focused on getting the new client, like new business, new business, new business. If you take excellent care of your business, your clients help take care of that for you. Like in my coaching side of my business, and I don't share this at all bragging, I haven't had to recruit for coaching clients for a few years because I make it a focus point to take great care of my existing clients. And they do a lot of referral business to me, which is my favorite kind of business anyway, right? Because it's the feedback of, hey, thank you for taking care of my needs.
Right.
And when we do it that way, but sometimes whether you're in network marketing or any kind of business model, we're often like new client acquisition, right? I want a new customer. Well, take care of the ones you have. In addition to, yes, be marketing, networking, meet new people, but also think about, are the people in my life feeling appreciated already? And am I doing and taking those actions to do so?
When it's the complete opposite of what we see all around us, right? Like I'll give you an example. The freaking cable companies. Let's just talk about them.
Can we not? Because that won't bring out my most beautiful side. This was last week's life, no joke.
Oh, really?
So you're
I'm
activating.
touching a pain point here.
Yep, she is.
But it's just amazing to me because they will offer you these unbelievable packages to sign up to be a customer that are $20 for 12 months or whatever. But when that 12 months is up, it's like they jack up the prices. They don't take care of you and they don't really care because you're in the system and it's going to be more of a pain for you to change cable companies. And it's just the exact opposite of what you're saying. So I think if we look at what's around us, it may be very common to just focus on the new. Focus on gaining new customers. Forget about the old ones. They're already in the funnel or the pipeline. But instead, I love what you're saying where you're taking care of your existing customers and they begin to be the ones that gain new ones for you. It's a totally different way of approaching it, really.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, I mean, you can only function for so long on the previous model, which is new clients, and then have all these frustrated people, right? Especially when you're in small business, which is where we focus.
Right.
I mean, your reputation is everything.
Yes.
And we want that to be the case regardless, but specifically when it comes to the business results, is if you're not taking great care of customers and they're having lots of negative experiences, that's not going to work long term.
Right.
If you're in the long term, right. And it's not to say you also, I mean, are there sometimes we've had experiences with customers or different things that, you know, you still have to have boundaries and policies and things like that. You're in business for you too. But it's really, if you lead with heart and leadership, that you're in business to take care of other people, you will be well taken care of because it's a reciprocal experience.
Sure. I love that example. Now, you have something that has always stuck with me ever since I heard your first presentation, and that is SW. So tell us your SWs, because I would love for you to teach our listeners what you mean by this and how it applies to our business, because it's so good and it's easy to remember.
Yeah. So it's the 4 SWs. SW stands for some will, some won't, so what? Someone's waiting. You know, and I often close on that because if I think about the best life or sales advice I could give anyone would be that. Is so often the reality is if you're willing to put yourself out there, which is, you know, cascading up over the fear and willing to be vulnerable and you put yourself out there, the more that you do so, that you're willing to be visible and go for it, you are going to get more yeses. You also will get more no's, although I put no's with a little asterisk. The full keynote, as you know, we talk about that there's the law of 4 interactions as well, is that you want to be aware that most sales take place after a 4th interaction. Not all, but all that's reinforcing is we're back in the business of people buy from those they know, like, and trust, and you're building relationship.
The follow-up, right.
So consider that. So some will, some won't, or at least not today, but some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. And I think the most potent SW is the so what one, because it's really asking us to look at how often we might put in our mindset that one person saying yes or no, or getting one rejection, or whatever the case may be, we might be thinking, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not cut out for this. This is hard. This is challenging. You know, all the negative self-talk.
I shouldn't do it.
Right. Maybe it's a sign.
Right.
Is you are going to face resistance. Have you faced resistance?
Absolutely.
I face it. You face it. We all do. If you're in the experience of moving forward, that's part of the experience. So the so what to me, I really love because it kind of like recalibrates the dynamic of, you know what, so what? Someone is waiting for my work, my product, or my service.
And I love that example. I actually had a similar experience. This was a couple of years ago where I got some reviews and surveys back from a speaking event I had done. And there was like, you know, 90 comments that were positive. It was great. It was awesome. And then there was a handful of people that, she's a terrible speaker and she talks too fast, which I do talk too fast, by the way. I get very excited. But there was multiple different comments of how I wasn't good, the message wasn't good, and it wasn't for them. And so, of course, like anyone does get down with critics and with criticism and that type of thing, you start to feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't do it. Maybe something's wrong with me. In your equation of sales would be the ones that say no, that some won't, But what's interesting that I felt like God said to me in that moment was, who are you fighting for? Because when you walk on stage, you're not fighting for those 4.
Right.
You're not for everyone, and that's fine. If they didn't get anything out of your talk, and that's fine. But who are you fighting for? You're fighting for the 90. You're fighting for the ones that will in your equation of some will, some won't. And so to continue to bravely put yourself out there and fight for those that want what you have to offer, and some that want to hear what I have to say, that can help their life by hearing me speak or something like that, is just a different paradigm shift, because it makes you want to go back out there and put yourself through the rejection again, because it's worth it to reach the ones that you're out there for. And I think that's such a good message, whether it's sales or just life in general, to continue to put yourself out there. Who are you fighting for? Some will, some won't. So what? But someone's waiting. Yes. Someone's waiting on what you have to offer. And so what a great message. Now, Tiffany, I would love it as we wrap up if you would just kind of end with some words of encouragement for our listeners. And you're familiar with this audience. You know some of their struggles, and I know you've heard their feedback. So let's just kind of wrap up, and you can speak to them on some encouragement and permission to go win.
Yeah, thank you. And I love this sisterhood. You guys are so incredible in what you're creating. And Christy and I just both send you so much love wherever you're hearing this today, in whatever season of your life. But my parting or last thought words here would be 2 things. One is that know that fear is part of the journey. And I want you to have a different framework to fear. Is to see fear for me now often means I'm on the cusp of a breakthrough. Now, fear, there's 2 different types of fear. There's the fear that's that internal, still, small voice, right? I wouldn't even label that as fear because it's quiet, but it's a knowing. But then there's the fear that's like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid, and is this going to work? And I'm not sure, and all of that is often just that you're at your comfort zone. And everything you want is just outside your comfort zone. So reframe your fear, friend your fear. See your friend as a teacher, not as the big boogeyman that lives under the bed that's out to get you. Because often when we feel fear, the natural human subconscious brain response is to go, I'm going to flee, fight or flight. I'm going to back up. I'm going to step back. I'm going to shut down. This might be a sign. Where often it just means for me, it's I'm living into my edge, which is great. If you're not ever feeling afraid, you're probably not dreaming or living big enough, right?
That's good.
So reframe the fear to mean I'm moving out of my comfort zone. I'm pushing that limit. So have a new conversation about what fear means to you. And secondly, I just love the concept similar to fear, but it's the aspect of our willingness to take imperfect action, right? That's a question I ask of myself. It's a question of clients. It's a question of any one of you is, are you willing to take imperfect action? Because the number one reason why people don't move forward, and it's fear-based, is they're waiting for things to be perfect before they move, before they publish the blog, before they open the shop, before they do this, before they fill in the blank, is they're waiting for this fear to go away, and they're waiting for it to be perfect. And perfection, as Elizabeth Gilbert has said, is just fear dressed in haute couture.
I like that.
Isn't that juicy?
Yes.
Is that she's saying it's just fear dressed up really pretty, is to say, oh, well, I'm going to wait until I lose the 10 pounds to do the headshots. I'm going to wait till the book's finished, then I'll do. And we spend our lives waiting. And while I do believe in taking time to get educated and be prepared, but realizing you're going to progress, I would never be sitting here with you if I wasn't willing to get started. Right? And to take actions imperfectly. And because I'm here with you and sharing in this space. But I think that for me too, those 2 together is reframe your fear and be willing to take imperfect action, whether it's in your sales, your life, anything, I think makes a big difference to creating what you want.
Tiffany, thank you so much. I know this is such a pain point for so many people I work with and you work with as well. And you have a way of just simplifying things in a way that we understand. You're going, yeah, that makes sense. And it gets to the root of things. We're not just talking about sales transactions. We're talking about the root of our beliefs and what we believe about ourselves and how we can reframe that to go out and win. So thank you so much for taking some time to hang out with me today. Now, here's the story of a woman who was able to leave a full-time job that she didn't like in order to focus on her dream business. I'd like you to meet Susan Leach, the owner and designer of Needle & Grain based here in Nashville. Needle & Grain is a sewing and woodcraft company that sells a variety of home goods, from quilts and blankets to wall decor and candles, all designed and handmade in Tennessee by Susan and her husband Bryson. and it came about in a unique way.
So Needle and Grain started when Bryson started making things out of wood. And so I was like, I think I need to find something I love to do. So I knew how to sew, and I knew that I wanted to quilt because my family doesn't have any heirloom quilts, and his family had like bunches and bunches. So I decided that over the summer, I was a teacher, so I decided I was going to teach myself how to quilt. So I found a pattern on, I think, Pinterest, and I was like, I can do this. So I went to Joann, I got all the things that I needed, and then I loved it. So I made my first quilt, and I was hooked.
Susan's business began like many others. It all started as a hobby.
One day, I just started making more quilts, and I put one on Facebook, and it sold immediately. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this could be a thing. So I started making more, and I sold all of them. So I started making like small baby items to go along with that because quilts are expensive, and they all sold. I think that was like in September, and the next February, we started an Etsy shop. Really, what started the growth on Etsy was I started appliquing the state of Tennessee onto onesies. I would just put like on social media and direct people towards our Etsy page, and they would be able to purchase it. And then it grew into people wanting like names on onesies or kitchen towels or small items. And then I would put my quilt on there, and if it sold, it sold, but if it didn't, it didn't. After I started doing those small baby items, I did like crib sheets, and that's kind of where it really took off because then I could do custom ones for people.
Since taking their business online, Susan has been able to leave her full-time position as an elementary school teacher to put more time into Needle and Grain. She says she's never been happier.
Bryson and I don't like to sit and watch Netflix for hours. So it was kind of like, this is something fun we can come home from work and do, and we're getting to do it together. So it wasn't until last year that we started doing like markets and craft fairs and things like that. And I think as those grew and that we actually saw that we were able to sell our products, that it was like, oh, this could be a real job kind of thing. It was a good way for me to say, okay, this is my goal and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take these steps into growing our business so that I can leave my full-time job.
Susan is in the stage where she works part-time during the week and supplements her income with her booming side business. She works a day job at a women's boutique downtown.
I was still applying for other teaching jobs. And then we were doing a craft fair, or whatever you want to call it, once a month last year. And so as we were doing these, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to have a full-time job and do these too. And I really enjoy them, and we make good money doing them. So this job opportunity came up to work in a retail spot of someone that I know and I really look up to. And so she was like, oh yeah, you can work 3 days a week and you'll teach me stuff and I'll teach you stuff, because we'd eventually like to have a retail spot. So I thought this is the perfect opportunity.
Along the way, Susan and Bryson had to focus on what products should make it into their store on Etsy. One of the biggest obstacles they faced is how to stand out among the competition. They also learned to adjust their prices and product availability as needed.
We just kept adding things on there. Anything that we could think of, we would just make something and put it on there. And then we realized that probably wasn't the best idea for our brand. So we've had to like refine our brand as we've grown too. We're really crafty. So like we realized that we could put 30 different items on our site, but you're going to be in 30 different places at once when you could be in, 10. So it was more of a time issue. Like, yes, we could make onesies and things like that, but is that worth our time when we really want to focus on like quilts and crib sheets? So we decided that after doing it for a little while that we needed to condense our inventory, because you don't want to have 100 items in your inventory and really you're only selling like 5 of them. So it was mainly finding out what your best sellers are and then, condensing so that it's more feasible for your workload. I've become selective on what custom orders I want to do. And I've also decided that I have to have like a flat rate custom fee so that if I spend 3 hours looking for fabric for somebody, it's not wasting my time that I could be making something for our website. That's been in the past year that I've had to really tell myself, you need to be selective. You need to be careful about what you're choosing to do so that you're not overworked.
Eventually, they decided it was time to develop their own website, and they analyzed their social media following to help decide when to move over. Moving from Etsy to their own site was a big step.
Some big people still are on Etsy, but they have like their own website that's very nicely designed, because Etsy, you're very limited design-wise. And so Bryson is very design-oriented and wants everything to be on brand. So that's where we were like, we really think we need a website, but we need the clientele to know who we are. So probably last year, when our Instagram numbers were growing, is when we decided that we think we have enough of a following to go ahead and create our website. Probably when we hit 2,000 was when we kind of knew that, okay, this is when we think we can make the jump to our website, because it's out of the reach of like our friends and then their friends, and now it's people that we have no idea who they are, kind of thing, and they're not spammers. Because once you hit, I think it's about 2,000 on Instagram, is when all of the spam people kind of go away, because that's real great to boost your numbers, but it's not people who are going to buy things.
Even though they have their own store on their website now, they still utilize Etsy for their children's products.
We're still going to keep our Etsy open because we still get a lot of random orders from like just people searching for blah, blah, blah crib sheet. So we took a lot of time to get like our website up and going, and like the photos to look really nice and the design to be what it needed to be. And so we haven't seen as high of a growth as we would like to. So we've still kept our Etsy open, but now we've mainly focused our Etsy on kid items instead of having all of our other home goods on there too.
Susan has advice for women who are currently successful on Etsy and are thinking about moving to their own website.
Etsy's really great because it has like all of your orders on it, and you set up how long it's going to take you to produce those things. So it has a reminder like, hey, this needs to ship out in 6 days kind of thing. So that's wonderful. Our website, on the other hand, does not have that. So you have to keep up with how many weeks it's been since that order has been here, or, those kinds of things. We just honestly have a whiteboard. And we have like Susan's list and Bryson's list, and then like things that we need to do together kind of thing. And then in our email, we archive everything that we have answered, and then everything that we haven't answered, it stays in our inbox so that you have to see it every time you open your email. We started using QuickBooks at the beginning of the year, which has been super helpful. If I could tell myself anything, it would be like, get QuickBooks from the very beginning, because it has invoices, and in there it tells you who hasn't paid and all of that kind of stuff. So that's been really helpful to go, oh yeah, they haven't paid us, we need to contact them again and be like, it's been a month, you'll need to pay us kind of thing. I would say that's really helpful. And then his dad is an accountant, and even if he wasn't an accountant, we would have found somebody to be our accountant, because you have to be a whole another kind of person to like want to keep up with all of your finances and taxes and all of that kind of stuff. So we pay sales tax and quarterly income taxes. So keeping up with that is also difficult. So we just have reminders on our phone. And then like this month we were still late. So don't be late on your taxes.
Eventually, Susan realized she needed more help in her business.
Last summer, when I started my new job, I was working a lot. So we had several wholesale orders, and I just physically couldn't do it myself. And I was teaching Bryson how to sew, and he wasn't super great. No offense to him. I love him to death. But I needed somebody that had more experience, and because it's a very tedious job of like sewing around letters. So I put it on Facebook, just like, I need some help with sewing things, so you don't have to have a ton of experience, you just have to know the basics. And this girl contacted me that I went to college with, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and she just wanted to make some extra money, and she wanted something to, kind of fulfill a purpose that she didn't have necessarily because she was just staying at home. She wanted to be able to work. So I let her try them out for a while, and she really loved them. And so she's been doing it with us for a while, and she loves it. And we call her a contractor instead of an employee, because we're not really managing her. We're just contracting out the work that she's doing.
Susan and Bryson love using their creativity to create innovative and unique products for the home. One of the biggest obstacles they faced is how to stand out among the competition.
How to be original in the sea of everyone else. Because you may have, a really cute onesie, but you're having to compete with 30,000 other people who have a really cute onesie. So you have to learn what keywords to use and how to market it, and paying for ads, is that worth it, or boosting your post? So we definitely have played with that, and we still play with that. So probably just being original and trying to be unique.
Even with their success, growing the business is still scary for Susan at times.
We had a really great Christmas season. We'd made the most money that we'd ever made, kind of thing. We had really successful markets. Then January hit, and our sales not stopped, but it got really low. And I knew from working in a retail store that that's completely normal, kind of thing. But it's been a slow process to get our sales back up, so that's been incredibly frustrating because, we may still have a few orders every now and then, but it's not what we want it to be. So we're trying to figure out right now, how do we market ourselves? How do we make new products without having to spend, lots of money, kind of thing? And just honestly to get motivated, because we were exhausted after Christmas. And so it's been a very slow process of trying to get back in the groove of things, because I think we just, really wore ourselves out. It's a constant struggle of keeping up with everything, all of your invoices, all of your emails that you have to answer. And with us, we share the same email account. So it's wait, have you answered that person? Have you answered this person? Have we sent that invoice? So I think I can make it sound easy, but it is really difficult at times too.
Susan still experiences doubt, but she chooses not to focus on it.
I still kind of feel this way, that I'm not bringing home a steady salary, so I have that guilt. But I'm just shaming myself. Bryson never would say that. Because I've cried about it and told him, I feel like I'm not putting in the effort that you are, and he's like, but you're running our business and you're happier. I was miserable teaching, and so if you're miserable, you need to get out before you make everybody else miserable around you. And so it was scary, but now looking back almost a year after the fact, it's I made the right decision, and I know I did. It just takes some time to have to get used to. So we planned financially what we were going to do, and we cut back, we don't have cable and things like that. And you just have to make those life sacrifices to make it work. And if that's your end goal of, making your small business profitable, you're going to do whatever you can.
Wow, what a great example to follow. If you dream about taking your passion to the next level, or, like Susan, are already running a business of your own, the Business Boutique event is the place for you. And I have a promo code just for you, the podcast listeners. Receive $5 off any ticket to the Business Boutique one-day events this spring by going to businessboutique.com and using the code BBWright. That's BBWRIGHT, and receive $5 off any ticket to the Business Boutique one-day events. If you're interested in growing your business, you don't want to miss this event. Now, if you've been able to quit your full-time job because of growing a side business, and you have a success story that you'd like to share with the Business Boutique community, I'd love to hear from you. Send an email with your story to podcast@businessboutique.com and we'll be in touch. Okay, this week I've got another free resource to share with you for your homework. Now, as we know, if we want to stay in business, we've got to learn to sell. But sales can be tough, so I want to help you with that. Go to businessboutique.com/podcast and download a video clip from my video training series. In this clip, I talk about how to sell without feeling slimy. It's just a brief clip though, so I'm also going to give you a discount code to buy the entire video training series for 10% off. Just go to this episode's show notes at businessboutique.com/podcast and download your free video clip. And if you want to purchase the whole series, you can use the discount code to get 10% off all 4 videos. Okay, before we go, I want to make sure that you're connecting with our Business Boutique podcast community. Go to businessboutique.com/podcast, and in the comments to this episode, post a short paragraph about your best sales or customer service experience. I know we've all had bad experiences, but I want to hear the good stories. The stories about people who went above and beyond for you. For me, there's one example where a Southwest flight attendant gave me her breakfast on a flight when I was starving and very pregnant. That's always stood out to me, and if you want the full story, we have a link to the blog in the show notes for this episode. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for hanging out with me as always, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. For more encouragement on how to make money doing what you love, visit businessboutique.com.
Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh, the Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Rip, Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Rip live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.